Hello, my friends. Welcome to me, your host, Christian Watson. It is so good to be with you guys here today. As I always say, guys, if you want to support my work, please leave a big like down in the description. Leave a comment down in the comment section. Be sure to donate to my Patreon, which is patreon.com/PhilipsWatson. It helps me a lot, and I appreciate it. Now, let's get into this commentary for today. So, I'm sure all of you have heard. Yesterday and relative to today, March 12th, 2021, Amazon decided to remove books that frame LGBTQ issues, as this article says, as mental illness. So this revelation was brought about a very eager group of senators, four of them, Rubio, Lee, Braun, Hawley, sending a letter to Amazon a few weeks back, asking Bezos why a book that was critical of transgenderism was removed. And they got a response back saying, as to your specific question about when Harry became Sally, we have chosen not to sell books that frame LGBTQ plus identity as a mental illness. And so a lot of people are freaking out right now. I have seen a lot of responses that say, if you ban bad literature, if you ban hateful ideologies, the hate and the badness goes underground and it gets stronger and it festers. And guess what? This is an argument that I've made plenty of times. I made this argument back in 2019 actually, when Louis Farrakhan and Alex Jones got banned from Facebook. Both Louis Farrakhan and Alex Jones, in my opinion, are just both despicable emissaries of mistruth, falsehood, and delusion. And so I understood why they got banned, but I think that it was doubly wrong if we want to be effective in fighting this battle. But my friends, as with all surface-level explanations of these issues, they rarely tell us how to fix the foundation of these issues. Everything in this world has a foundation. The place I'm staying in right now has a foundation. Your car has a foundation. Foundations are what we need to look back to understand what is built upon them. Because if we don't, then we'll simply be laboring in the science of fixing symptoms, or we'll be laboring in the science of fixing what is at the surface, rather than actually fixing and nipping the root of the illness at the bud. So there is, we all know that a lot of companies are being possessed by these radical mindsets that come out of academia that are endemic in a lot of critical race theory stuff. And these companies are embodying these mindsets and using them in their policies. Now, let's be very clear. Every company has autonomy over the extension of their genius, which is their property. So just as a simple property rights point, there's nothing wrong with Amazon wanting to do this. They are a private distributor. This is their right. That is not what is at subject here. What I want to bring awareness to is how knowledge is being assaulted by critical race theory and how that is endemic in this situation. My friends, I always ask this when I talk about knowledge. What is knowledge? Knowledge, my friends, and this is my opinion, is the result of an inquisitive, structured pursuit that looks at a certain thing. Knowledge is a result of an inquisitive, structured pursuit which seeks to get more about a certain thing relative to what that individual does not know. Knowledge itself is not relative, in my opinion, insofar as if you have full knowledge of something, that full knowledge is not relative. But it's relative insofar as not everyone knows the same knowledge. And knowledge, and this is the distinction that was made back in the ancient Greek philosophy. Plato said there's a difference between knowledge and opinion, which suggests that there's an overarching truth. And we're not going to litigate that in this video, although I do believe there's an objective truth. But regardless of what you believe, simply possessing the ability to look at something and get something from it, or possessing more knowledge, I guess, it's not to be redundant, about a particular thing, gives you the ability to interact with that particular subject more. You cannot be a doctor until you've gone through medical school or until you have significant knowledge of your profession. Us lay people can't really interact with these highbrow medical ideas because, again, the knowledge, we have not undergone the process to produce the knowledge that necessitates our actions. So here's my question. If you've not undergone the process to produce the knowledge to understand bad ideas, how in the world can you understand if they're bad in the first place? This is not a matter of simply disputing bad ideas. This is a matter of understanding why they arise in the first place. Wouldn't it be propitious, meaning beneficial, to the advancement of human dignity, according to the viewpoints of these people, the people who are banning these books, to actually critically assess the condition of being transgender, understand its benefits, understand its woes, and then go from there? No. See, because you see, the sort of overarching ideal in modern day society, with the rise of critical race theory, is that not all knowledge is good knowledge, which may be correct, but the knowledge that is not good knowledge is knowledge that is hurtful. Oh yes. So there is a theorist who I've been keeping an eye on for a long time called Mary Matsuda, and she wrote, along with Charles Lawrence, Richard Delgado, and Kimberly Crenshaw, who founded intersectionality theory as one of the chief spokespeople of critical race theory. She wrote a book called Words That Wound, Critical Race Theory, Assault of Speech, and the First Amendment. Here's the description of the book. Words, like sticks and stones, can assault, they can injure, and they can exclude. In this important book, 4 prominent legal scholars from the tradition of critical race theory draw on the experience of injury from racist speech to develop a First Amendment interpretation that recognizes such injuries. In their critique of First Amendment orthodoxy, the authors argue that only a history of racism can explain why defamation, invasion of privacy, and fraud are exempt from free speech guarantees, while racist and sexist verbal assaults are not. The rising tide of verbal violence on college campuses has increased the intensity of the hate speech debate. This book demonstrates how critical race theory can be brought to bear against both conservative and liberal ideology to motivate a responsible regulation of hate speech. The impact of feminist theory is also evident throughout. Okay, you guys can read I'll link this book to you in the description. You can read the rest of the description if you want to. It's the fundamental idea, again, that words and meanings can produce harmful effects if we assign a harmful value to them. Racism is a bad thing, correct, I agree. But for the critical race theorist, for these people, they don't simply think racism is a sort of unsavory thing to do. They think racism, even if it is not enforced by force, racism just existing in the ether, just existing in random space in society, is still a lethal threat to people. So they are estimating the fragility of African Americans to be of a single standard, or the fragility of anyone in a marginalized group to be of a single standard, and therefore connecting that false standard, which they have not proven, to the idea of speech. This is the same mentality that Amazon is using, but except this does not deal with racism. This deals with potentially hurting the feelings of LGBTQ people by posing a different mindset or a different alternative to what is considered to be the general orthodoxy. Amazon thinks that it is harmful to have critiques of the LGBTQ condition. I think that it is harmful. And they're kind of using a principle as like this. And so Mary Matsuda wrote a paper called Public Response to Racist Speech, Considering the Victim's Story. And she continues to develop this line of thinking. She says, the call for a formal legal structure response to racist speech goes against the long-standing and healthy American distrust of government. It also goes against the American tradition of tolerance that is precious, in the sense of both being valuable and fragile. So she recognizes that. But she also goes and she says that in calling for legal sanctions for racist speech, this article rejects an absolutist First Amendment position. It calls for the movement of the societal response to racist speech from the private realm to the public realm. So for Matsuda, and let's understand, she's talking about how you handle racist speech in the context of racism. Amazon is obviously talking about how you handle speech that may be offensive to LGBTQ people. A little bit different on the same genre though. For Matsuda and the people like Matsuda, this racist speech is a public matter, and even though there is stuff like the First Amendment, it still hurts people, and therefore a public response, a government response, is required. Now, of course, Amazon is not calling for a government response, but they are taking up the mantle of their own sort of governmental response internally, and getting rid of literature that they decide is harmful. Once again, when this is predicated upon a false notion of knowledge or a narrow notion of knowledge, it doesn't really help us engage with the world. The world, my friends, is nothing more than a compendium of objective thoughts, of objective facts. There are things that exist in the world. My hands exist in this world. This water bottle exists in this world. This world is a composition of objective facts. But the only way we can interact with those facts in any meaningful way is by understanding them. And as Amazon seems to take up this mantle of viewing certain things as harmful or whatever because they are critical, that they are quite literally expressing their inability to want to engage with the world in an honest way. So we can criticize how this drives extremist movements underground. Great. I'm more concerned about how this drives our ability to understand the world into the cave and not to the sunlight, as was demonstrated in that beautiful Socratic allegory that is also known as the allegory of the cave. So let's keep looking at the sunlight, guys. Let's not go underground. Let's understand what knowledge is. Let's understand how knowledge arises, and let us not let words constitute a physical harm to us, when in reality, each and every one of us react to words radically differently than one another. Whereas force, well, it doesn't matter how you react to force. Force is an objective fact. If someone shoots you in your arm, you're shot in the arm. But if someone shoots an insult your way, it depends on how mentally strong, or how caring, or how apathetic you are, or you're not. So let's not equate these things. Let's understand that knowledge is very important, and the pursuit thereof is very important to understanding the world, and therefore being able to make determinations like this. And let's continue to fight this absolute lunacy with every iota of our beings. Think on it. As always, my friends, I love you, and please stay offensive. Bye-bye.